Weird sciencey facts that boggle my mind. Minnesotans love a big beaver. And while sadly the biggest beavers can't be found anymore as they disappeared about 12,000 years ago, fossil remnants of the biggest beavers that ever existed can still be found in places on the eastern seaboard and right here in Minnesota and other places along the southern parts of the Great Lakes. And when I say we had some big beavers back in the day, I'm talking giant beavers. Beavers that were up to 6 feet long and weighed over 200 pounds. The giant beaver existed from about 1.4 million years ago till just about 10,000 years ago and was one of the largest rodents to ever exist. They were the largest of the 30 beaver species to ever exist and obviously quite a bit larger than the 2 remaining beaver species today. And to look at one of their fossils, they look like just a supersized version of our modern basic beloved beavers. But with their closest common ancestor existing 24 million years ago, they're really more distant cousins than close kin. Like that distant cousin you've heard your grandma speaking of but have never seen, we don't know a whole lot about our big beavers from back in BCE either. We know that like the little beavers we're used to today, giant beavers liked getting wet. They had short hind legs with huge hind feet that would have made them excellent swimmers, but terrestrially terrible, bad on land. We know that unlike modern beavers with their big flat paddle on their behind, the giant beaver had more of a traditional tail. And we know that the old beavers had some big teeth, about the size and shape of bananas, which I think any beaver could appreciate. With a mouth like that, you'd assume that these big beavers could take on some big wood. But the reality is that we don't know if these beavers ever choked on any oak. We actually haven't found any evidence that would suggest that these beavers liked wood at all. Some beavers don't judge. And we have no evidence that they built dams, which to be fair, it would require a pretty big dam to get a wet spot big enough for a 6-foot beaver. Our best guess is that the giant beavers just found big enough naturally occurring bodies of water where they could get wet with other beavers and not have to worry about the wood. Our best assumption is that they didn't leave the water much and they ate aquatic plants, but the reality is we really don't know. Because there is a possibility that they could have enjoyed big hard wood and gave a damn about building dams. But as many disappointed women know all too well, wood doesn't always last as long as you'd like it to. And it's possible that all of that wood wasn't able to last as long as the big beaver's fossils. And despite all we don't know about the giant beaver, the one thing we do know is that us Minnesotans love some big beaver. In fact, Minnesota is one of only 4 states without a state fossil. But we came close to making the giant beaver our state fossil in 1988. But it didn't, and we remained without one until 2021, when the Minnesota Science Museum, which has a fantastic fossil collection, including one of the giant beaver, said Minnesota not having a state fossil was some beaver bull. So they held a vote to let Minnesotans choose what they thought our state fossil should be, and Minnesotans were like, we want some big beaver in our lives. That should be our state fossil. But our state legislatures apparently think it's silly, and they haven't made it official. So if you're a Minnesotan who wants to see giant beavers get the recognition they deserve, you should give your state reps a call. Thanks to Paleogoth for giving me the idea for this video. She works at the Science Museum, and if y'all are ever in St. Paul, you should go to the Science Museum and check out our giant beaver. You won't be disappointed. And the fact that we can believe that big beavers bathing in their bastions were bona fide badasses long before our baby beavers started taking bites out of birch, well, that is pretty mind-boggling.